Hello everybody, welcome to Tech Tuesday at 2. I'm William Davis, here to welcome you to the Low Creative Studios here at Tech Tuesday at 2. The event is designed to encourage students to experiment with some of the latest technology and software. We want to make sure all this tools are available to students and that you all are able to get comfortable with that and develop the proficiency that you need here at OSU and beyond in your careers. This semester, Tech Tuesday at 2 will meet here in the Creative Studios on the first Tech Tuesday of every month of the semester. Last year we learned about Adobe Premiere, Adobe Audition, coding with HTML, the vlogging kits, and a lot more. If you missed any of our programs, you can find all of them on YouTube by searching for OK State Library Tech Tuesday. Today's program is all about the flight and drone simulators here in the Creative Studios as a part of the Virtual Reality Suites, sponsored by Elizabeth and Jim Wise. Our pilot for the day is the library's own Shannon Austin. We'll take questions from the audience afterward, and if you're watching on the onlines, you can, on the live stream, you can submit your questions on Twitter using the hashtag LibTech2s. At the end of our program, we'll be drawing for prizes, including today's grand prize, this DJI Osmo gimbal. If you're an OSU student here with us, make sure that you've signed in with that little name thing and put it in the bowl. If you haven't already done that, come see one of our staff and we will help you get signed in. Without further ado though, I believe we're ready for takeoff. Here's Shannon Austin.
Thank you, William. Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Shannon Austin. That still feels weird to say. I got married over the summer. But I'm here today to talk to you about our newest and pretty exciting feature that we've just added to the Creative Studios, and that is a combination aircraft flight simulator and drone pilot training software program from DJI Industries. So for starters, how many of you are familiar with quadcopter unmanned aerial vehicle technology? Who's ever flown one before? Nice, nice, okay. You're miles ahead of most people, particularly in Stillwater, but more on that later. We're in restricted flight space. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So for starters, when we talk about an unmanned aerial vehicle, that is a lot of different things. That can mean the small handheld ones, that can mean the 22-foot wingspan, remote operated gigantic data collection drones, that can mean technically single rotor blade helicopters are count as drones, and that also there are several hybrid classes of UAVs. So for starters, let's get kind of into what it is that we're talking about. Can everyone see that? All right. So more formally, drones it's the more common expression, but formally, any sort of unmanned aerial system or unmanned aerial vehicle kind of falls under this category. But all it really is just a robot that either you control or it controls itself using pre-programmed software, GPS systems, various onboard sensors, in conjunction with stabilization systems, flight control systems, all of that sort of thing. So let's jump in. First and foremost, the one that most people are going to be familiar with, which are what are known as the multi-rotor aircraft. This can be anything from a 3-propeller craft to an octocopter. They got tricopter, quadcopter. Quads are probably the most commonly used commercially, not commercially, civilly? Anyways, but they have a pretty light carrying capacity. They're limited in range to about 10 kilometers, and the smallest classification of multi-rotor copters rarely travel above 100 knots. Once they go faster than that, they tend to earn a different classification, and that's more than enough for most hobbyists and various other things. Typically, they're battery powered. There are some augmentations that you can make to make them more efficient. They're working on different ways to make them last longer, but these have a relatively short battery, depending on obviously the weight, how much you're carrying, whether it's a camera or if you're gonna, deliver a package via Amazon. It just kind of depends. They're usually controlled handheld, they're close range, and yeah, those are probably the most common ones. And they have a lot of advantages. Having multiple rotors on them, they're very easy to keep stable and steady. That's why you'll see them a lot of times used in photography, cinematography, and all sorts of, things like that. So those are one type of drone. Second type, Fixed wing craft. These are the big boys. Well, I say that. They can be any size. Sizes vary crazily. They can be as small as about a couple of feet. They can be as large as 22 feet to several more meters than that. As far as their carrying capacity, anywhere from light, obviously, to very heavy cargo. These things can do a heck of a lot. And when I say very large, I'm talking about 2,000 kilos and more. The planes themselves, the fixed wing drones themselves they're a little bit more complicated. That's why you rarely see them used by civilians, because they require a landing strip, a takeoff strip, or in some cases a catapult system or some sort of net to collect them. So they're very similar to actual airplanes. They have medium to long range. They can, because of the way that they're designed, akin to traditional aircraft, they don't have to, unlike a quadcopter, which uses propellers to provide lift, they're designed similarly to traditional aircraft, wherein the wing creates lift. They just have to have something move it forward. So intake, engine, propeller sometimes, and they also can run off several different types of fuel sources, batteries for sure. Some of them, the more high altitude suborbital drones will use solar power. There's one that uses a liquid hydrogen fuel cell, and of course your traditional diesel or jet engine propulsion. The ranges on these can be incredible depending on what they're being used for and how much weight, again, that they're carrying. The flight time for these can be as many as several hours to literal weeks. If it's flying high enough and has the right equipment prepared for it, there are drones that can basically circumnavigate the globe, which is pretty cool. So flight time, excessive. Speeds do vary. So anything more than and up to 100 knots, 250 knots, and even the ones that are suborbital for like climate scientists, data collection, those things can travel at Mach 25. So pretty impressive. And that's another way that these have an advantage over traditional aircraft, because in types of flight maneuvering and situations like that, these are machines. Machines can handle G-force a lot better than people can, so it's got a lot of advantages there. But these are also a type of drone. Next up, single rotor craft. Everyone's seen someone with an RC helicopter. This is technically a drone. They are actually very useful for certain situations. Now, when you think about a helicopter or a single rotor craft, instead of having obviously multiple rotors, it has just one. And it has an advantage in that it can run for longer because the blade itself is technically just one giant airplane wing providing lift. So it's able to rotate slower and it uses less energy. So it has a longer flight time, has a better range, can carry a lot more loads. But because it's a single blade instead of multiple, tends to shake, tends to have vibration with it. So not ideal for photography or any sort of cinematography or where you need to have a good still image. Great for a combination of distance traveling and also cargo delivery. They can carry much more heavier loads, I suppose. Speeds can vary. Flight time is going to be longer than a traditional quad. Yeah, and again, powered by battery, gas, diesel, engine, etc. Yeah, these are also really common and kind of, one could almost say they're kind of the original personal drone device. It's only recently, in the past couple of years, that you've seen quads overtaking them. All right, then we got the weird boys. Now these are exciting for several reasons. Hybrid drones use a combination of fixed wing aircraft with the addition of rotors for hovering. So this has many distinct advantages. One, if you need to go distance, you have the capacity to, you have the energy to, and you have the ability to use the longevity of a fixed wing aircraft. And then with the addition of the rotors, you're able to hover, lower, be still, rotate, adjust your yaw, things like that. That's where, I don't know if you can see here, but this is actually the hybrid style drone that Amazon is thinking of implementing for Amazon Prime Air, which is pretty cool. It uses, you can kind of see here, a combination of both factors. So if we ever get serious about Amazon Air delivery, this is probably what they'll use. Because again, the fixed wing aircraft have the problem with the stopping thing, and hovering drones have the problem with the horrible battery life. not horrible, but you get me. A combination of both looks like it really is going to be a great, great leap forward for these. And there's several different types. Okay, so usage. What is the point of all of these? So because there's so many different varieties, what these aircraft are capable of, well, varies greatly depending on what you're wanting to do. So let's just jump right in again. So multi-rotor craft, these are emerging as incredibly useful in an incredible amount of fields. Photography, cinematography, journalism, surveying, landscape areas, agriculture, livestock. If you're one of these large landowners that has several 100,000 head of cattle, you're not going to have a good time trying to check on every single one of them. You're seeing drone technology being used in fields like that. Power infrastructure inspection, I don't know about you, but they're all along every single highway, every forest, this whole interconnected power grid. It's really hard to inspect all of that, but with the use of drone technology, this is becoming more and more easy to do. Again, on offshoot of agriculture, viticulture, vineyards, silviculture, forestry. That leads us into things like fire protection, firefighting. What am I talking about? Let's see. Obviously, the entertainment factor. Moving on, kind of from the journalism perspective, great for covering areas that you really don't want people on the ground. I mean, I'm not sure what Florida's looking like right now, but situations like that. Let's see, what else? Sports media, I'm sure we've all seen, if you're a follower of any sort of sport, you've seen cameras on rigs, usually being controlled to get some really cool shots of your football players. That same technology is being explored, drone technology. So there's several thousand uses and counting. Fixed wing aircraft. Oh, I should go back really quick. So the multi-rotor craft, the reasons why they're so popular, number one, probably because they're the lowest cost. They are super, not cheap, but for enthusiasts, for hobbyists, for different consumer markets, they are incredibly useful, and for what they're capable of, they're incredibly low cost. They're small size, they're portable, don't require a catapult to launch. The whole vertical takeoff thing is great. I just like catapult launch, that's the coolest thing. Anyways, but that's why they're probably the most popular. So fixed wing aircraft, as you might expect, because they're more along the lines of traditional aircraft, they're more complicated to operate. Again, as I said, they require a runway, landing way, that sort of thing, catapult system to launch. But they have many, many, many uses as well. And they come again in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I didn't show you this before, but these are just a few of the data collection, surveillance, reconnaissance, whatever drones. I don't know if you see, but that guy down there, that's a guy standing under a tree. So again, when I say sizes vary, they vary, very much vary. So, whoops. So back to it. Terrestrial surveying, again, because of the lack of their ability to come to a full stop, they tend to be better for taking passes on large swaths of area. Long-range transport, emergency response, cargo delivery, things like that. A lot of these are flying around taking oceanic and atmospheric temperature readings. Obviously, there's several usages globally for national defense, things like that. So yeah, less common in the consumer market, more military and government agency, EPA sort of stuff. But anywho, so that's when you would use a fixed wing. Single rotor craft, I mentioned before, prone to vibration due to the single blade, really good for geological surveying and long distance travel, fire protection, disaster relief, GIS, recreation as well. Similar, again, to the multi-rotor, but these are a little bit more specific of a purpose. And then hybrids, I mentioned before, the combination of fixed wing with the, hi Brett, the combination of fixed wing with the rotor compound really makes for a great and versatile drone. Okay, so why is this relevant? Why is this important? Why does it matter that there are all these different types and all these different things? Well, here's the problem. The rapid adoption of UAV technology in multiple systems has resulted in a severe lack of qualified pilots to meet the demand in all of these industries. What we have is all of these systems, whether it is silviculture or somebody that wants to shoot a movie and have a really awesome shot of the library. In order to be a professional drone pilot, you have to be trained. You have to know how to fly a drone. And the initial startup cost for that can be somewhat daunting. And then there's the other problem. What's the first thing you're gonna do when you flip on your drone? Whee! And guess what? There's a tree. It's broken. That was $1,000 that just smashed into a tree. Wow. Either that or ask to borrow your friends, and that's the first thing you do. Whoa, and you've ruined a friendship. So third thing that can happen, you can live in places like, well, Stillwater, Oklahoma. We now have a municipal airport, it was a municipal airport. Now we have a regional airport. Woo, go us. We can now take real flights. It's great. We're all in controlled airspace now. We can't do actual drone piloting in this area for about 15 miles in a radius, which is pretty much the entire town. And there's several flight paths inward and approach vectors that we still can't fly in. So even if you get yourself a quad and you let your friend risk your friendship and let them borrow they let you borrow theirs, you still have to go way out of your way to learn to fly it. There's all sorts of issues here. So pilots needed. What's the solution? Well, as I say for most things, the solution is always going to be found at the library. So what we have is a drone flight simulator. We have had a aircraft flight simulator for about a year or so. That was a generous donation that we have kind of updated and augmented since then. But our most recent acquisition was that of the DJI Enterprises drone flight simulator, which uses a real Phantom 4 drone controller. These serve no purpose because there's no actual drone associated with it. It just looks nice. But what this is a Windows-based software that allows you to plug in this drone controller and learn how to pilot various types of actual drones. Let's see, so it uses a physics engine similar to any sort of CAD software, design software with a physics or rendering engine in it to simulate real-world air conditions, varying weather effects, rain, wind. It actually simulates signal degradation the further it gets away, which is irritating, but hey, it's all in prep for the real thing. There are piloting exercises in it that include obviously takeoff and landing, safe operation, the different types of perspectives. You can view it from the first-person perspective of where the camera would be. That would be attached to the bottom of the quad. You can view it from which is silly and fun. Traditionally, with a controller like this, you would have a tablet or even your smartphone here. There's a view that is basically exactly this that you can use. There's a fun but semi-unrealistic third-person drone perspective, as if you had someone that was that good that was following right behind your drone. Fun to play around with and kind of get your bearings. Little less realistic, but really fun to do. And then the exercises themselves start you from the very basics. How to turn it on, how to elevate, adjust your yaw, pitch forward, stop, go back, stop, go back. There's multiple ways to control it with GPS on, GPS off. There is also a route vector tracing program that allows you, it gives you a pre-programmed flight you have to follow to get you used to maneuvering, facing different directions, raising elevation. There's an entertainment mode, which is essentially it's a racing course, a good way to really pick up this pace and kind of change things up a little bit. And the best part of all of this is, aside from the simulation itself and the real world feel of it, if you smash the drone into a tree, you only smashed a digital drone into a tree. It wasn't a real one, it wasn't your friend's, and so you're not gonna have to worry about the consequences of mishandling it. The simulator itself, I just pulled it out for this presentation today. The room where this simulation is kept is literally right behind me. This went to sleep. It's okay. It's right behind me, and it is connected to a smart board. There's onboard sound, and you can reserve the studio just like you would any other study room. You just go to library.okstate.edu, select reserve a room, hit the drop down for Creative Studios, and you can reserve it for up to 4 hours at a time. Let me back out here. There's also, so this is just kind of a first step. Getting comfortable flying a drone is just kind of the first step to getting your small aircraft pilot's license, what's known as Part 107. If you're going to fly in any sort of control airspace and be a professional drone pilot, the second part, and is probably a little bit bigger part, is getting your remote pilot certificate from the Federal Aviation Administration. All of the material is online. You can, there we go. All of the information is on the FAA website under UAS for Unmanned Aerial Systems. You can search and peruse through their entire knowledge database. There's downloadable PDFs for studying, and we actually have a testing center here on campus. The University Assessment and Testing Building is just down the road from where we're standing. So you can get all the materials in, you can get all of the information you need for the test, and you can come get your digital wings here and log virtual flight hours to get you comfortable flying a drone. And that's the big point. If you're going to go into any of these industries, as I mentioned before, this is a very good skill to have. The library is very pleased that we can offer these things to you. Providing access to things that might further your careers in the future is our reason for existing, truly. And it's just another thing here at the library and part of the Creative Studios that we're happy to offer. So come check us out. There's a lot of really cool things here. And yeah, so I'm gonna take this minute, open up for some questions. Has anybody got any inquiries about the machine itself, how to get access, who am I, why do I know this stuff? Anyone?
Do we have a real drone in our university?
At the library, we do not. For the same reasons that I think it's a great idea to have a simulator, we don't have an actual drone to check out. Who knows what the future may bring, but currently no. We just have the controller for it and the software. Good question.
It's in my lab.
Oh, where's your lab?
In the engineering south.
All right.
There's only one drone and that's it.
Is it what model is it, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm not aware of the model, but I know that that's the only one. If any student comes for drone engineering and stuff,
Okay,
we'll have to study with them.
I'll send them your way.
Could you put the link back up to the course?
Yeah, sure. There we go. There you are.
So if it is our very first time reserving a time slot for either the flight simulator or the drone simulator, can we get a little instruction to get us started?
Absolutely, yes. My office is right where you're going to check the key out for the room and the controller itself. If you need some introduction to it, I'm more than happy to provide that. And I also have a virtual and flight simulation intern that would also be happy to help and offer some basic instruction. So yes, you can absolutely get some help getting started. All right, well, if there's no other questions, how about a brief demonstration? Yeah? All right, let me get over here and try not to trip over everything. Unfreeze you. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you enter into the room. I definitely recommend using the chassis, and then you check out the drone separately. The software, I was going to say, I didn't talk much about the actual flight simulator, but it uses Microsoft Flight Simulator X. We might talk more about that one later. So the software is DJI Flight Simulator. The credentials log in automatically. I'll get that started. Okay. So I'm going to have to talk fast because this thing has really great sound and it's going to start blowing your hair back in a second. But so you get it in, you start it up, and the drone itself controls like any other thing, and you're going to plug it in up here on the top. On this part of the chassis, this is the drone controller plug that you plug right into the top. You've got two choices. You got a standard USB. That would be used if you were going to have the actual screen connected here, but since we're plugging into the computer, all we need is this little USB micro cable. And where it's going? Woo, all right, here we go. So you want to wait until it logs in before you turn this on, and it's a two-part process. One press shows you the battery. 2 presses and hold will turn it on. Here we go. In a minute. A few more seconds. There we go. Okay. 1, 2. On we go. Okay. It'll take it a second to recognize it. I think. Back on. All right. So I'm going to do skills training. Let's see. What do we want to do here? Nice. Pretty good. That's cute. Oh, yeah. Let's do the big hoss. All right. Several different tests you can do to get started. I'm sorry, I'm shouting. Yeah. So I'm going to go into free flight. Whoop. All right, let's do, yeah. So free flight allows you to get the fully immersed experience of the drone itself without, like once you get a bearing on liftoff, takedown, moving around in a circle, rotation, free flight allows you to just really get a feel for how it works. Sorry about the beeping, it needs to be calibrated. If this were plugged into a real drone, it wouldn't be doing that. Okay, here we go. So let's get both inward. So that's your first perspective here. Got this one, which would be from the camera itself. This is a little bit less realistic one, because it's pretty unlikely you'd have a camera following that close. And then there's the line of sight view. Let's do this one. Hey, there's me. All right, let's go for it. Woo! Whoa, boy. All right. Okay, so that's just a very brief demonstration of what this thing's capable of. I'm gonna go back to the main menu so y'all can come play around this, but that's all I've really got for right now. So wanted to thank you all for coming. One sec. There we are. Wanted to thank you all for coming, and I'm gonna hand it back over to William now. We'll do a little bit more playing around with this in just a minute. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you all for coming out to Tech Tuesday, and thank you for your questions earlier. If you want to know more about the programs or the equipment, feel free to ask any of us, especially Shannon. She's very knowledgeable about the drone simulator, about the 3D printing, and really about everything here in the Creative Studios. She kind of runs this area of the library. Our next Tech Tuesday at 2 will be October 1st. That'll be all about Photoshop, so if you want to learn how to use Photoshop, come on out October 1st right here in the Creative Studios.